open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
Welcome to Kentucky's Voice. I'm Debbie Robbins. Tom is away today, but I am so excited to always be joined by my co-host, Bob Scott. We're here today because we represent Christian conservative thought. That is us, and that is you. We represent your voice. And we want to welcome you if you're listening to us on 970 AM, The Answer. And if you want to be a part of the show today, please text us on our text line. It's 502-571-0970, because this show, again, is all about our voices, our love for Kentucky. We are also a listener-supported program, and we so appreciate your help. We truly appreciate our sponsors, but if you feel led to give to this program to keep us on the air, to keep your voice heard, you can go to www.kyvoice.org, or again today, just give us a call or a text, 502-571-0970. We are really excited about our show today and tomorrow, because today we're going to get a recap of the 2026 legislature session through the eyes of a Kentucky state senator, one of my very favorites. And tomorrow we'll hear the perspective from a House representative as well. So stay tuned. And remember, we want to hear from you, 502-571-0970. But you know, this past week, as really the week before, to me, oh my goodness, we are living in some serious historic times. Amazing things that are happening right before our eyes. Yeah, every day is history, but I really feel like it's just crazy. Over Easter weekend, my husband and I went to see this amazing movie called The Great Awakening. And everything that's been happening has made me think about that. In 1739, if you don't know the story, here's a little backstory. Christian evangelist and former Anglican priest Reverend George Whitefield, he came to America and started revivals here. He preached with this beautiful, amazing, strong voice, the salvation message. He formed an unlikely friendship with Benjamin Franklin, who at the time owned a printing press. And it was kind of unlikely because Benjamin Franklin, who ended up being one of our founding fathers, he was raised in a God-fearing home, but he had drifted away from faith due to legalism and personal pride. But through the years of letters and visits and spirited debate with George Whitefield, whom he met in 1739, it was ended up being Franklin's reason and conscience that brought accountability before God to our constitutional Congress. Because when the men were writing the Declaration of Independence, they had the debate stalled. And at that time, George Washington, he stood up and asked the elderly Franklin, who usually didn't speak in front of the Congressional Congress, he would just listen. He wanted him to speak. And it was rare, but he got up, and I think from his relationship with Whitefield, who was always trying to win him to the Lord, he recognized and he told them, he said, God governs the affairs of men. He warned them that if God, he is worried about when a sparrow falls, and that he notices that no nation can rise without his aid. So he urged them all to go home. He wanted them to pray and come back. And that's what they did. And they came back and they wrote the Declaration of Independence. And I'll tell you what, that has changed history. And I wish it was today, I think we are in a need of a great awakening because we have so much corruption going on in our government from local, state to national levels that we need to get back to we the people. We need accountability, and we need for leaders not to be worrying about money and influence and outside powers. We need them to have moral responsibility, and that's why I'm excited about the senator that we're going to have on in just a few moments, because she is one of those. But we need people to stand up and stand firm for our moral convictions, just like George Whitefield did, Benjamin Franklin did, when we were at the Congregational Conference at the beginning of our nation. And when we get back, as soon as we get back, we're going to play you a little bit of that. Don't leave, and come back and see us at 502-571-0970. We'll be right back.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Hi there. Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. And as I was saying before the break, we really need to get back to having leaders that will stand with moral courage. We need to remove those that persist in evil, to demand leaders who act with wisdom, discernment, conviction, and that are unmoved by fear or pressure, and they're anchored in truth. And that is what happened with Benjamin Franklin at the Constitutional Congress, and those men there. They humbled themselves. They went home, they prayed, they came back, they made great decisions. I do believe we have some great godly leaders that are trying to make a big difference, and they're making the turn. But I want to encourage you, if you want to be inspired as Americans and to be able to stand up and begin to speak out, go see The Great Awakening. We're going to give you a little taste of it right now and get back and introduce our amazing guest for today.
You were friends with a preacher? Was he part of the revolution?
George Whitefield was the revolution.
The Constitution needs to speak to the heart of these people.
My friends, let us not be asleep, but awake! Benjamin Franklin.
Reverend George Whitefield.
A match made in heaven.
Or just a deal made in a print shop.
Let us proclaim freedom to the captives!
You are the lightning bolt, George. I am just the lightning rod.
And who is the source, Ben?
One tiny candle illuminates 1,000.
Arise, O sleeper! Awaken!
God bless America. God bless America. I'm so thankful for Benjamin Franklin. I'm thankful for the George Whitefields of the world. And I'm praying that God is raising up more moral leaders and great pastors in this country. Well, today I'm very excited to have a wonderful young woman. Her name is Lindsay Tishner. She is a Kentucky State Senator right now, and a little bit about her background before she came into the Kentucky State Senate in 2022. She was a real estate agent with Covenant Realty. She also was a great salesperson for Arbonne International. She has been a missionary. She is an amazing woman. She loves serving women and looking out for women's issues. But when she came to the Kentucky Senate, she absolutely has made such a difference and has stood up for some serious issues in our state. And during her tenure, she has sponsored legislation on topics including religious liberty, anti-Semitism awareness and higher education, tax exemptions for senior homeowners, opioid treatment research, missing children alert, on and on. And she did a lot of great work during this session. And we are thrilled to have Lindsay here with us today. Bob and I are so happy she's here. So Lindsay, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on.
We are so happy that you're here, and we just want to give you an opportunity to speak to us and give us a recap of the legislative session. I loved getting your notes. You said you want to talk about the great things you did do, the losses, things you missed that you want to get back on next year. And Bob, what do you think? Why don't you start us off with a question for Lindsay, and let's get this conversation going.
Yeah, there's a lot of directions we could go. I know it was a very busy session, yeah. Lindsay. You were, as usual, right in the thick of it and with a steady hand as we went through that. And obviously, yesterday was literally the last day, of the session. And it has to be by the Kentucky State Constitution. April 15th is the final day. And some other significant things happened to us on April 15th as well, as far as federal income taxes are concerned. But, what do you feel? I mean, there's a bunch, and I know we have several things we'll talk about right now, but I know there's several items that's been near and dear to your heart with regard to what's happening in our state. And let's start with, the whole idea of school choice, something, again, you've been adamantly involved with and a leading voice on that. But what's your thought processes as far as where we're at right now concerning that subject?
Yeah, that is probably one of the biggest wins, I think, for the future of Kentucky and Kentucky's kids. As everybody knows, we worked on Amendment 2 a few years ago to allow for school choice to be offered at a state level, and it didn't pass. There was a lot of opposition to that happening inside of our school buildings and use of taxpayer dollars. We actually passed Senate Bill 59 to address that issue, to make sure there's some teeth around not using taxpayer dollars against a ballot initiative or to promote a ballot initiative. That truly should be a vote that the people get to make on their own accord and not be influenced by other people's money and our money to do it.
You're talking about the fact that you had teachers unions
yes.
Coming
inside of our school buildings, yes.
Inside of our school buildings, which to me is absolutely atrocious. And they were using essentially a lot of it, taxpayer-funded monies to come against that.
Absolutely, in a huge way. And it was reported multiple times to the Attorney General. But what we found, even though the law existed, there was no teeth in it. All the AG could do was order a cease and desist, which then the next school would do it. So it was the game of whack-a-mole as schools were using taxpayer resources to fight against school choice. And that's really, I take huge issue when people say every county in the state voted against Amendment 2 in school choice. I disagree with that, because our counties were influenced improperly and given incorrect information about school choice from a very biased perspective using our tax dollars. So that was a huge win for us to be able to pass Senate Bill 59. That was Senator Steve Rawlings. But the move we took forward now is House Bill 1, and that will opt us into the federal school choice initiative, which is going to be a tremendous program. It gives anyone the opportunity, any school, even our public schools can participate in this. But they create a scholarship granting organization within their school, and people can donate and receive up to $1,700 tax credit dollar for dollar on that donation to that school scholarship granting organization. And then it can serve our students very directly. It can go for scholarships to go to a private school, or it can stay within the public school to assist kids. So it really is a win for everyone, and a win for our efforts and everybody's efforts across the state who've been trying to raise the level of education across the state of Kentucky. And I feel very strongly that's where our future is on shaky ground right now. We need to have better options for our kids. Our kids need to be very solid in their reading and their basic math skills in order for us to have a strong Kentucky in the future.
And they need to not be indoctrinated.
Of course,
and
yes.
And that, I think, is part of the big issue there, too, as well.
Huge issue.
And I'm hoping that this federal program, is this forever, or could the next president, if it's not a Republican, get rid of it? God forbid.
It was passed through Congress. It would have to pass again to eliminate the program. Yeah.
Okay.
This wasn't an executive order. Okay. This was passed through the big, beautiful bill.
Okay. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, another issue you were mentioning as well, tell me about the criminalizing grooming.
Yeah, this was huge. So I've spent a lot of time working in this space over the 4 years that I've been there. And this came from a House bill. This was Representative Marianne Proctor worked on this, and it became a priority bill. It was House Bill 4. So that it just tells you how far we've come. When I rewind back in 23, when I first got there, we would have debates on the floor that grooming isn't happening. You know, the left would say grooming isn't happening. And now we have gotten to a point where the Kentucky General Assembly passes a law criminalizing the very thing that the left said wasn't happening. Mm-hmm. And obviously, we've seen a lot of this happening within our schools. I worked on Senate Bill 181 last year to make sure our communication lines were not private among students and those in positions of authority over them. That absolutely had to do with grooming. We've seen case after case within our school systems, and we see it within our churches. We see it within our private schools. We see it everywhere where technology has opened a door to access to minors, and people are taking advantage of that. So not only have we closed that loop within our school systems, now we've criminalized the behavior. So not only can they lose their ability to teach and have their license revoked, they can actually be criminalized for the actual behavior. And this criminalization of grooming goes across our internet in any way that people are predatorily reaching out to our kids and grooming them. This is now something they can be charged with.
What was the most egregious case that really got you going on making sure this stops?
You know, there were so many, and I had actually a constituent, and that was the thing, so many victims that would speak out. Another bill we passed this year was House Bill 253, which had two different bills on it. One about literacy, which is a brilliant piece of legislation that will help improve literacy across the state. But another part of that was a bill that Representative Tipton, these were both his bills, that had worked on for many years. And one of the first testimonies I heard on this issue before us in a committee was regarding this issue of a teacher grooming and sexually assaulting a student. Oh. And this poor girl, to hear her testimony, and she was at that point in her 20s, but that it was such a powerful testimony to realize this type of assault on a young person doesn't leave them. It stays with them. It creates a different person. It damages them because you've taken away their innocence from someone that you trusted. Right. And that was such a powerful testimony. It brought me to tears in committee, but so many people, a constituent of mine has worked on this issue with me and really tried to get at the heart of grooming and trying to close those loopholes, which is what we tried to do with 181 and now this, and then also with House Bill 253. We have taken huge steps forward to protect children across the state.
Well, we're going to come right back and we're going to hear more. So please contact us at 5.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We are so happy that you are here with us today. We want to hear from you. 502-571-0970. We have State Senator Lindsey Tishner here today with me and with Bob, and we want to hear all about what's been going on with the session that just ended. But Lindsey and I both got to see the movie The Great Awakening, and I love that this program represents all Christian and conservative thought. And I know she has an opinion about that, and she's also written an amazing resolution she wants to share. So tell us about it, Lindsey.
Yes. So I have been working with an old friend, Barbara Jeters, and she has launched something nationwide called the Nehemiah Rebuild Initiative. It's a 52-day initiative, which will start in September and go all the way through to November 1st. And it is a call for us, based on the story of Nehemiah and rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, that we would rebuild through the Lord, through prayer, fasting, reflection, rebuild the walls around our homes and our families and our states and our governments and our nation, and really call on the Lord to restore us. And as we've heard that verse from Chronicles so many times, if my people, that's us, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, he will restore and heal our land. And one of the funny things, she drafted this resolution, and I was thrilled to file it and just get the attention on it. And I would encourage anyone to go on the legislature.gov website, and you can read it. It's Senate Resolution 198. But one part of it, she references a proclamation by President Lincoln. And this was during the time of one of the most divisive times in our history of the Civil War in 1863. It was Proclamation 97, appointing a day of national humiliation, prayer, and fasting, and calling on Americans to humble themselves, repent, and seek divine guidance. And I thought about that, and I had to go look it up because I wasn't familiar with this proclamation. I said, is that really supposed to say national humiliation, or should it say national humility? And no, it means we need to be humiliated by our sin. We need to be encouraged and drawn on our knees by the faults that we have, and understand we have nothing without him. Our nation will not be whole without him. Our families will not be whole without him. It is a beautiful proclamation. I'd encourage anyone to read Proclamation 97 from 1863. And, we are told so often from the opposite side that we were not a Christian nation. We were not founded on Christian values, and that is absolutely false. And if we start teaching our true history, we will see that though someone like Benjamin Franklin maybe did not know the Lord in most of his life, he absolutely came to know the Lord at the end of it. And he was influenced greatly by men like George Whitefield, and as was our nation going forward. That at the end of that movie, and his call during that convention was that we would open Congress in prayer. And we do it to this day, and we do it in the Senate, and we do it in the House in Kentucky every day. And we have pastors come in. Sometimes they're great pastors that come in and are aligned with our beliefs. Sometimes they're not, but every one of us in those chambers who knows the Lord, we bow our heads and we call on him to give us wisdom, to give us courage, and to really strengthen Kentucky and help us to, with wisdom, pass legislation that is honoring of him and protects our citizens and opens the door for us always in any way we can to continue to have the liberties that we have so enjoyed the last 250 years.
I absolutely love your heart, Lindsey. I thank you so much. I do. And, I know that right now we are in the middle of national humiliation. One way or another, justice denied is not, it doesn't mean it's not going to be served. And I'm looking at the congressman, Swalwell, the two people from Florida, the people that have absconded with funds, the sexual immorality, all the things that are happening. Now, that's on a national level. But, sin touches everyone from, from local on up to national, just every human being, like you said. But wow, for him to say national humiliation. Yeah. Now, Bob, I know you have some thoughts on this. You've got a real passion and a heart for our nation. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I do agree, obviously, with everything that Senator Tishner just shared. We said it many times on this program. We're at a turning point as a nation. You know, we find ourselves literally at a crossroads, and we know that there's some, and it's more than just about the midterms that'll be coming up in the fall.
Yes.
It's now really, I feel, about laying a foundation, you know, of righteousness. Well, first of all, repentance, which then will lead to righteousness, you know, with regard to directionally where we're going. And as far as leading towards the midterms, and I know because I'll put it this way, folks, if the Senate, and I'm talking about the federal Senate and the House of Representatives, if they change, we're going to be seeing some very dark times, you know, that's going to be happening. And would you talk a little bit about that, Senator Tishner, as to what needs to happen between now and I will say this, and this is something I've been calling for, and this might be somewhat outside this discussion, but I think it all ties in. There's a lot of thought process, and President Trump has made some statements, and I'm not talking about the recent statements. Everybody's aware of that. But I'm talking about with regard to maybe eliminating the federal income tax. You know, that is something because it has put most Americans in bondage, and it needs to go away. It can go away under the certain set of circumstances. And there is some talk that because of some of the actions that he has taken recently with regard to Nicaragua, or I should say Venezuela
and Iran, yes.
In Iran, that it's going to create enough money or a pool of money that could eventually, and one of the misnomers, the income tax is collected in our country, honestly isn't enough really to run our government. That's a misnomer, you know. But what are your thoughts about that, you know, as far as moving forward? And
and just people with courage to be elected that are going to really be able to understand these issues. So what do you think, Lindsay?
Oh man, how much time do I have?
I wish we had all day.
How much time do you need?
Okay, so you talk about a couple of things. For one, yes, our income taxes cannot sustain our government right now because our government is incredibly bloated, and we are wasting money everywhere. And that, you know, I'm so thankful to Nick Shirley, who illuminating what was happening in Minnesota and what was happening in now what's he's seen and happening in California with so much fraud. And we started digging into fraud long time ago in the Kentucky General Assembly, and we've continued to do that. We've seen our current auditor, she is amazing, Allison Ball, has done a tremendous job. She was on Capitol Hill talking about the waste that she's uncovered of federal dollars being wasted at the state level to the tune of billions of dollars. So if we can get a hold on that, and I'm so grateful, although I don't think the Trump administration has done enough. I know they're still doing stuff, but it's such a big pervasive problem. It's not going to be a quick fix. I would love to see the DOJ efforts just totally amp back up and really start hacking away at this. I know they've shrunk the government as far as number of employees that don't need to be there, but we need to be looking at where these NGOs are spending money, why we're giving money to so many nonprofits. We looked a lot at that in the state level this year.
And Lindsay, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to say the NGOs in Kentucky, I'm concerned. So go on. I'm sorry. I'm very concerned about that.
And you can look at their 990 tax filings and you'll see how much money is actually being spent on their work they're claiming to do and their employees. And some of them make $900,000 a year, right?
Goodness.
So, and then we go, okay, and they come to us and ask for money, and they come to the federal government and they apply for things. And we have such a behemoth federal government. How do you catch all of that? How do it all gets snuck in, these giant
I know.
omnibus
Well, we're going to
spending
come back
bills
and continue our conversation. Bob raised a big can of worms there. There's a
Yeah.
lot there to unpack. So don't go away. Text us 502-571-0970. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We are here with Kentucky Senator Lindsey Tishner, and she is going to just jump right back into a great conversation we've been having about DOJ and NGOs and taxes and fraud and waste and abuse in Kentucky, unfortunately.
Before we start talking about this with Senator Tishner, and our show producer said, boy, we should have been rolling while we were off camera. Because this is something, I'll be honest with you, it really gets my dander up.
Yep.
When I look at this, because, and for those of you that are listening in the car or at home, she said a word as far as a number of really fraud that's happened in just the state of Kentucky. It amounts to billions with a B, not millions, but billions of dollars of our tax money, people. That's been going. We know tens of billions has happened up in Minnesota so far.
California,
California, even more than that. And it took a young guy with a camera, and that's what's really scary too. Nick Shirley to go out and start uncovering this absolute fraud that has been raping our nation and raping the taxpayer. And this is where we need to really drill in and get to the bottom of this and why, in my opinion, it's long past due that not only we uncover this, we start sending people to jail where they belong.
Right.
And if we just recover that, we can do away with the federal income tax. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but that is one of my personal pet peeves. That is something that since it was brought in the early 1900s, the federal income tax has absolutely put the everyday American, the everyday hardworking American, in bondage.
For sure. And really, I want to know in Kentucky, is this, at the risk of throwing your compatriots under the bus or anyone, I'm sorry, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. If you are supporting fraud or you're giving money to people that shouldn't have it. I want to know about it. And you need to resign. You need to go away. You may even need charges brought up on you if you've partaken in any of it. So is this more on the governor's side that our auditor has found, Lindsay, or is it, tell me, go ahead.
Yeah, listen. I mean, there's so much. And our auditor will say, if you watch, I watched a little snippet of her testifying before Congress yesterday, being interviewed by Comer. I retweeted that on my X account. She says this, it's fraud, waste, and abuse. And that's exactly what it is. There's fraud, then there's just waste, and then there's just abuse. So we've got to find all of those avenues. Is there fraud that Nick Shirley, like what Nick Shirley? Yes, I have no doubt that's going on because it's so big. The numbers are so huge. How could, tracking all of that is almost impossible. Thankfully, we have someone like Allison Ball who is absolutely looking under every rock and trying to find where's the fraud, where's the abuse, where's the waste. When I think about waste, I think about one of the bills that I was able to move forward this session. I didn't pass it. It got grabbed onto another House bill, House Bill 67. And that was one of our priority bills to make sure that our school districts are using our funds properly. Do I think there's fraud there? I don't think so. I think it's really just loosely spending of money because it's not theirs. And you don't treat it the same way when it belongs to someone else. And we saw that through credit card statements that were gathered together across the state through citizens doing open records requests. And we saw tremendous amount of waste, mostly at our administrative level. So that bill, although it didn't come out as strong as I had hoped, we are requiring any school that has 2% or below their budget reserve has to now put all their credit card statements on their website so we can see where the spending's going. So obviously, there's waste that's happening there. There's abuse of the money. We have seen, in my opinion, out of the compassion movement, a drive from the left to just get everybody on Medicaid. And in it, truly in a compassionate way, we want to make sure everybody has health care. Well, some people on Medicaid don't need Medicaid, and they're able to manipulate the system because the system is so loose. Anybody can apply and nobody double checks, right? Or if they do, and this was where most of the fraud that Allison Ball found was in Medicaid. 823 million, I believe, is what she found looking at two issues. Now, some of that's federal dollars, some of that's state dollars, but just the same, it's tax dollars. It's all our money. It doesn't matter. But 10 years ago, the state of Kentucky was spending $10 billion on Medicaid. Now it's doubled, 20 billion. More than 40% of Kentuckians are on Medicaid. And I guarantee they do not all need to be on there.
And how many of those?
How many are illegals?
Do you, and that's my question.
This is a great question. So we passed a great bill. Again, I think every bill could probably be stronger, but this was a great start. We have to line our Medicaid program up with what came from the HR1 from the federal level. They are peeling back and starting to make sure we don't have non-citizens on our Medicaid rolls. And so we had to do a lot of adjusting to make sure Medicaid, those who do truly need Medicaid, not earn it, but need it and need that public assistance, which is the purpose for it, that they are protected, but we're able to start weeding out the people who don't need it. We are looking at their income, we're looking at their citizenship, all of those things. So we had to align everything with what the federal requirements are now. So we didn't have any hiccups and miss out on the people who do truly need it.
Now, and, Lindsay, I'm sorry to jump in, but who does that? Who and who discerns who's a citizen or where is that happening? Where the county clerk's offices, who does this?
Lots of different things at the federal level, at the state level, at the county level, all of those. And, one of the bills that we moved through, House Bill 139, which was the big election bill, there were some parts of that were good. There were some parts of that were not as great. I was able to get my Senate Bill 154 on that to make sure we have only photo IDs. No longer can someone come with a SNAP card and vote.
Yes, I just had election training. I'm an election officer. I just did training a week ago, and I appreciated that. But one thing I didn't like in my book is it said if they do not speak English, they still should be allowed to vote. To me, that's a big red flag. If you don't speak English, you're probably not a citizen.
Well, we aren't requiring them to be able to speak English. Right now, did you know, and I filed this bill, it didn't move, unfortunately, Senate Bill 123 would have required all of our driver's licensing and testing to be in English. Do you know how many languages it's in right now?
Too many.
22 languages right now, languages that use different alphabets. And now they're driving on our roads and they can't read the signs. And unfortunately, we're seeing these horrific stories from those who have CDL licenses. Now, Kentucky, our CDL licensing is in English and Spanish. I do believe it should only be in English because, again, they need to be able to read the signs. We're watching these accidents happen across the United States with licenses that people who have licenses who can't speak the language and they don't know our rules. They don't know what's happening on the roads, and they cause these tremendous accidents that are killing American citizens.
So again, as us as citizens, you're my senator here. How do I hold for accountability? It's like, I want to know, like when these driver's licenses are issued to illegals, are they the same as the real ID? They shouldn't be, because that means you should be a citizen. So how do we distinguish the difference if they're getting Medicaid, Medicare, if they're coming to vote? How do we find that out, and what should be done? It's driving us crazy out here, and I'm it really is.
It's driving me crazy as well. And I advocated against a couple of bills that moved forward on this very issue that we're continuing to. We had a huge housing bill that, thankfully, I advocated against it. It had one measure in there that I did think was very pro-immigration, but I voted against it for multiple reasons, or I was going to vote against it for multiple reasons. But when you look at that, we hear just a couple of days ago, we have a shortage of 10 million houses. Right. Well, how many immigrants do we have here that got into the country and of course we have a shortage of houses. Yes, that are taking up the houses that our children who are going out into the world can't afford to purchase anymore. Right.
And jacking up the rent. The rent is skyrocketing. I have a college student.
And you have foreign entities that are also buying up homes. Like, a lot of those things need to be addressed both at the state level and at the federal level to make sure that we are protecting the housing industry. For one, it's messing with all of our prices in the market. And if we flood, I've always argued, if we flood and open the door for all of new homes to be built, everyone who has home ownership right now, their values are going to go down. They're just going to go down. That's just the way that it works. So we have to move forward on those issues very carefully, but yet also realizing we do need to help our younger generations be able to afford a home. I'm so blessed. I have two boys that are both married. One's 21, one's 25, and they both are already homeowners, and neither of them are college graduates. So they're an anomaly in their generation. And so it can be done, but it's something that we need to really be paying attention to, because I think, you look back at education, if we aren't setting up our kids to have a solid education, and we have below 40% proficiency in reading in Kentucky across the state, that is absolutely atrocious. How can they graduate, get this piece of paper that says they've graduated, but really they aren't proficient in reading? How are we setting them up for success?
We're not.
So there's so many issues to look at, so many different angles. And, we tie into the federal level in so many ways. And we look at, I've always thought since I got in, we have got to protect our states' rights because of the outrageous behavior during COVID. We have got to make sure our state is protected, that we can operate in a manner and that we aren't being, pushed on by the federal government in ways that are hurting our citizens,
or by a rogue governor. I mean,
or by a rogue governor.
Honestly,
absolutely,
it drove us crazy. I know, and thank you. I want to get back to again just the fundamentals. I mean, it's like whack-a-mole, like you said earlier. The fundamentals to me are: we must eliminate illegal aliens from our country.
We need to.
I've traveled all over the world. I know I could not stay in the country. I would be thrown out if I tried to disobey their laws. And, I could give you stories that would curl your hair. And you've been in foreign countries as a missionary. But illegals, it just has to be eliminated. And this is our state. States' rights. We need to protect our sovereignty in our state and nationally. And so
we need to protect our resources too.
Exactly.
We are our taxpayer dollars are being used to supplement and cover the costs of people who are here illegally and are not paying into the system. And you can look at our school system as a prime example. Warren County, Jefferson County, they are serving students who with over 100 different languages. That is a huge burden on the taxpayer. If they're here legally, okay, that's a different issue. But if we are expending our resources in a manner to serve them, then we're not serving our own students well.
Right.
So we really need to look at this issue. I think Trump's been doing a good job, but across the board, we have got to make sure our citizens are protected.
We're going to come back and keep talking. We're so thankful that you're here. And everyone, please text us 502-571-0970. We'll be right back.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. Bob and I are really excited to have Lindsay Tishner here today, Senator Tishner, and we've been discussing a myriad of topics, and there are so many. We just feel like we're doing whack-a-mole today. But Bob, one issue that you and I have in common, and I think many Kentuckians, we're very concerned about Sharia law. And we are just concerned about so many things. But Senator Tishner, go ahead. Ask her what you're thinking about that. Go ahead.
So there was a bill filed in the House that did not move this session that would have banned Sharia law. It didn't move, so I went ahead and filed it as a resolution. I'm going to open up my binder here and see if I can find it. So this was filed in the Senate. Anyone can go look and read it. It was Senate Resolution 279. I'm going to read one portion of this I thought was one of the strongest parts of this. Whereas the institution of Sharia would require the destruction, abrogation, or violation of the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Kentucky. And that's what we're talking about. So Sharia law, reading a really interesting book right now. It's called Civilization Reckoning. It's a big, thick book. It'll probably take me a little while to get through it, but it is about the move of Sharia law through jihad, which isn't just violence. Jihad is civilization's jihad, cultural jihad. It is infiltrating. That's what jihad is, in order to implement Sharia law. And we've seen that happen all across the world. Most of the Middle East, though they were Christian nations, we're watching right now in real time Nigerian Christians being genocided by Muslims. because that is their call of jihad, because they are moving forward to try and implement Sharia law in a global manner. And you can study end times prophecy. You'll see very clearly the connection of Sharia law to the Antichrist and ushering Muslim caliphate across the world. And what's happening in Europe, we need to be paying very, very close attention to. A lot of Western civilization is being utterly destroyed, and was done out of a move of compassion. Right? These people are coming from terrible places, war-torn lands. We saw the European Union open the doors in Germany, and now Italy, Spain is being literally invaded as we speak of males, not women and children, but men coming across and trying to get asylum from their war-torn countries that they have torn through their wars. And now it's being pushed on us in various ways. And we need to get ahead of this. Unfortunately, we didn't move forward this session, but I know it's a key priority for several of my colleagues.
Let me ask you, why, Lindsay, was that not moved upon? I mean, to me, that is as basic and common sense as it can get. And we've had Bill Wesley on this program a couple times. I know he was a big proponent for it over on the House side.
Yeah.
But this is a no-brainer. You see every single day. You were talking about the countries in Europe where these immigrants are basically dissecting, destroying, raping, murdering, pillaging those nations. And there is a paralysis, over there.
So why? So why did our Kentucky legislature, what was the holdup? And if it was personality conflicts, I'm going to call them out right now.
Well,
knock it off. I don't know.
I don't know that was it or not. The bill was filed by Representative Wesley over in the House. And I don't know what conversation. I didn't see him all set. I literally did not see him all session. It's amazing when you have 138 people running around. You don't always run into each other. So I didn't get to discuss it with him. I just knew it wasn't moving, which was why I filed the resolution. I wanted it on record. I think I said, it was Senate Resolution 279. So there's two things, in my opinion, when I was having discussions with some of my colleagues. There's the opinion that we don't need this because our Constitution is firm and Sharia law can't be implemented. It wouldn't. My argument is, look at Michigan. Go check out Dearborn, Michigan, where there are Sharia courts now set up. And that's the move. That's the other point that brings me into my point number two. They set up their own councils within their own mosques, and they implement and operate under the veil of religious freedom. So those are the two things that we're fighting here. We're fighting that this is that our laws are already strong. If this ever came before a court, our Constitution would be upheld. It never makes it before a court, because these issues are happening in their own communities under the veil of religious freedom.
Right. But I'm sorry, with this current Kentucky Supreme Court, I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them to see the forest for the trees. And they would absolutely close their eyes to our state constitution. So we need.
Well, they already did this session.
Exactly. So,
on the impeachment hearing. So we know that they will again. And I think we've opened the door for them to be able to do some of those things in the future. But I believe we are at a crossroads where we have to acknowledge the true danger of Sharia and the Islamic faith, which is political in nature.
Yes.
It is not just that they want to worship freely in the manner that they believe they're told to, because the way they're told to is to kill and conquer. They took over Christian nations all over the Middle East with the sword, and they will do it again. And they have been, and they are doing it. We're watching it in Nigeria. So we need to be paying attention to this, and we need to get ahead of it and really look at this for what it is. This is a political movement. And they say they're doing it to worship their God.
And another example of that to the extreme is what we're looking and dealing with, and what President Trump is trying to cut the cancer out, and that's Iran. They asked, what was the first thing that they did when they got power? And they come in, initially, like you were talking about, saying, hey, we just want to have our basic rights and have an opportunity to express our positions. That's how they come in. It's kind of like a snake that slivers its way in. But the first action they took when they took power in Iran, they murdered.
Yes.
And I'll say it again. They murdered a duly elected female representative over in their legislature. No trial, no nothing.
Yep.
They just went in and killed her.
Right.
It's totalitarian. That's the way this functions.
So, and here's the danger of it right now. There's this unholy alliance we're seeing between the Catholic Church through the Pope, who is now over touring.
Well, you're touching a lot of hot spots for me right now.
Yes.
Well,
he sent us some clips this morning on that. It was amazing.
Yeah, it is incredible. And I think we have, as believers, we need to look at Scripture. I think we're heading into an interesting time because we hear that that in the end times will come a powerful delusion. And when you see who should be the leader of the Christian faith among Catholics and among Christians around the world, you're watching him. I don't know if his mind has been deluded, or if this is the powerful delusion that's going to lock us into this unholy alliance. And you look at it politically as well. The left is leaning towards Islam and supporting Islam. Look at Mamdani up in New York. I know I say his name wrong, Mamdani.
Mamdani, that's okay.
And you see Queers for Palestine. In Palestine, they will throw you off the roof if you are gay. Yes. They have no mercy for homosexuality at all, but they're teaming up here in the United States. So there's political, there's religious, and I think it is truly, truly a powerful delusion. And I would call believers, get yourself into the Word of God, because we're going to have this delusion come our way now within the conservative movement, and we're seeing it by some social media influencers who are lining up with trying to make Islam and the Quran and what's happening not in the world not that big of a deal. We have to be very firm in where we stand, and it has to be on Scripture alone. But we have to be careful. Social media is the algorithms are working hard.
Well, you know what? That's why we're
people.
Yeah, that's why we're here today, Kentucky's Voice, and that's why I am so thankful that you are one of our Kentucky State Senators and that you are a woman of conviction. And I before we run out of time, Bob and I want to know what bills will you try to put forward again next year, and I hope this is one of them. But what can citizens do between now and next January to be a part of the conversation, to let our legislators know, listen, we're putting you on notice. And but with elections being so crazy, also not knowing if they're rigged or not, it's just crazy. We really feel sometimes helpless, but we're not, because we are on God's side and we are with him and we are prayer warriors. But what can we do? Tell us what to do. What are you going to put out there next year? What can we do between now and then as we sum up today?
So what I'm going to put out next year are a lot of the same bills that I didn't move this year. I do recycle quite a few of them. I'm going to continue working on education. I'm going to look this interim. I've already spoken with our committee chairman, Senator West, to try and hear my digital learning to restrict some of the digital time we have and really start explicitly teaching students in the classrooms without the use of devices. Heavy use, we've seen it's not effective. Yes, it's very costly, but Ed Tech has a big lobby. They've made a tremendous amount of money on a one-on-one Chromebook initiative, and pulling that back is going to take a little bit of time. But I think the data is out there to support that we need to pull back. Our kids in K through 5 should not be moving forward until they are proficient readers, know their math. So that's a huge one I'm going to work on. Obviously, I'll continue working on the Sharia law bill. I want to continue trying to get a bill passed to protect children from sexual exploitation through the drag movement that we still have. I worked on that for 4 years, and we're
Don't
still
stop.
here.
Don't stop.
I know as a legislative body, we'll continue to work on the waste, fraud, and abuse. We're going to continue looking at those things and tweak every area that we can in preparation, hopefully for a new governor. We hit a wall on a lot of things that we do because this administration just stops it. just hands down stops it. So we are working in a manner that we can have a good, solid Republican governor in place that will get our executive branch agencies in better shape, hopefully. So,
and I want to remind our legislators, not you and not others like you, but we've given you a supermajority for a reason. And it's because we want you to do the will of the people, not the will of you scratching each other's backs or what position you may try to be vying for, because that is not what this is about. You're a servant. And Lindsay, you've been an outstanding and are an outstanding servant. And we appreciate you so much. Bob and I thank you so much for being here today. We are deeply grateful. We'll be praying for you. And I love this Nehemiah movement. I can't wait. I want to be a part of it starting now. And thank you, listeners, for being with us today. We look forward to having you back tomorrow. God bless you, Lindsay. Thank you, Bob. We'll see you all tomorrow.